So, Dressed Impress is under a lot of fire over their newest Valentine's Day update, and I want to talk about three core features that I've seen people complaining about. The first one being the removal of Leah Ash from the quest, the second one being accusations of paywalling certain features from players, and the third being the high cost of candy items versus the unobtainability of the candy currency. So, we have a lot to talk about today, and we're going to get straight into it. So, first of all, Leah Ash. If you guys don't know, I've made several videos about the situation, and basically, there are some allegations that Leah Ash did some not so great things with her best friend's husband. We're not going to get into all that, but keep in mind these are just allegations. But because of that, a lot of Roblox games seems to have been kind of distancing themselves from her. And even if an allegation is true or not true, regardless, a game doesn't want to involve itself in controversies, especially stuff that has been so highly publicized. So because of that, Dressed Impress made the move to remove Leah Ash from the Valentine's Day quest, because initially they were going to have her in the Valentine's Day quest as a character, and they instead replaced the character with a person by the name of Heart. So Dressed Impress News posted, Leah Ash has been replaced by Heart in the Dressed to Impress Valentine's Day update, and the text says, "Hi, my name is Heart, and today I'll be assisting you in your introductory Cupid training lessons." So very interesting to see here. I've seen a lot of quote tweets of this tweet of people saying, I wonder if Leah Ash is going to play the update, because she has been playing some Dressed to Impress, and actually in a recent, it was like a video from a couple weeks ago, she was playing real high and someone said like something along the lines of, why did you steal Megan's husband? Which, keep in mind, these are all just allegations, and she didn't edit it out, so a lot of people thought that was quite funny. But a lot of people are speculating whether or not she will even play the Cupid or, Valentine's Day update, because she was initially supposed to be this character, and whether or not she will mention the fact that she's been replaced or will just ignore it. So with that in mind, I definitely do think that'll be interesting to see, and I'm not quite sure what would happen based on how she's handled stuff so far. I'm pretty sure she's just going to ignore it and act like it didn't happen, which that's her right, whatever floats your boat. Now, second of all, we have the allegations of unfair pricing. Now, I do want to clarify here, I take publicly posted comments, these are fair use. However, if the comments seem a little bit opinionated or maybe might spark some controversy, I do just blur usernames to protect the people involved. But basically, there was this comment posted to the Dressed Impress community page, and it writes, "And once again, Dressed Impress ruins another update by doing something completely unnecessary. This time, it's locking all the new clothing material that we have needed behind 400 Robux. I promise you, it's a punishment for not getting money off the Baddie Pass. I'm beyond disappointed." And basically what they're referring to here is this Materials Plus Pass, which I'm not quite sure what they said it was 400. For me, it shows 299. I do understand that Roblox does have like a global kind of area pricing system now, where based on your currency, that's how much stuff will cost. For me, it's not 400 Robux. Maybe they adjusted the pricing after Backlash, or maybe it's just my currency. I'm not quite sure. But regardless, for me, it shows it being 299 Robux. Now, although I understand people's frustration with this, especially, free-to-play players, and I do think that it is, reasonable to be agitated if a bunch of the new clothing textures and stuff are locked behind a paywall. I do believe there's like a balance to be had with some of them being free, some of them being paid. But also, in a video I posted 2 days ago, we actually did a deep dive into how much does Dressed Impress theoretically earn from just Robux sales of their items, and it's not a lot. I believe when we got to the end of it, to purchase all the game passes, which you guys can watch it, I'll link it in this video, but to purchase all the game passes, it's like 48 USD, and by the end of it, they keep $8. That was a math that I worked out based on, not to mention taxes and paying employees and stuff like that. Like, there is so much to it. But I definitely don't think that 299 Robux is, a super unreasonable amount to charge for a Game Pass like this. But I also do understand that some players are free-to-play players, and I do think that they could have maybe made some of the clothing assets, for free for players to just enjoy, and then maybe the more highly wanted ones or more intricate ones could have been, locked behind a paywall. I'm not going to demonize the game for paywalling certain items, especially when Dressed Impress has set very low price points for their VIP passes and stuff like that in comparison to other games. And so I feel like in the grand scheme of things, their stuff isn't that expensive, but I do understand this frustration, and I feel like maybe this could have been approached in a way that made it a little bit more fair, while still obviously optimizing earnings for Dressed Impress, because they had to make money, otherwise there would be no game, right? Now, the final topic we're going to discuss here has to do with the candy minigame. So if you guys don't know, Dressed Impress added in this new candy currency, which looks like these little candy heart things that you get for Valentine's Day. And I did do some of the minigames myself, which, side note, before we even get into it, the minigame is based on a time thing, and I have to say, the giant screen rumble after you finish every bouquet hurts my eyes so bad and slowed me down so much. I have glasses. I am not the best at seeing, obviously. And I don't know if it's just my prescription or if everybody experiences this, but oh my goodness. When I was trying to do the bouquet thing, and every time I finished a bouquet, the screen just like shook violently, my eyes could not focus and it felt like I was going to throw up. And then like trying to like readjust my eyes so I could do the next round, it was just very confusing. It was very hard on my eyes. And obviously I think that the quest or the minigame has to be challenging to a degree, but I feel like when you're adding visual distortions like that, it just makes it very challenging and unfairly challenging for people who have maybe difficulty with their vision and stuff like that, like me. And so I hope that maybe they'll tone it down a little bit, or they can add like a different like animation when you finish a bouquet, like maybe hearts going out or something like that, because the screen rumble to me just, it hurts my eyes so bad. And I was like low-key getting a headache behind my eyes after just finishing the little mini game, which I know it's a me problem, but at the same time I'm not the only person with glasses, so I don't know. But regardless, basically, there has been a lot of comments about candies in Dress to Impress not being enough, which if you guys don't know, the new currency is candies. You can purchase in this currency for Robux, but you use the candy currency to purchase limited edition Valentine's Day items. So the items that you can purchase, I just took a screenshot here, but it's basically this Rococo kind of set. And we'll look at some of the feedback from players regarding the quality of the set in a second here, but you can see that you can purchase these shorts for 350 candies, the bow or swirl hat for 900, the swirl top for 800, etc. And these prices might not look like that extreme until you actually look and see how much you are earning for doing this sort of quest. So I believe you could do the bouquets 4 different rounds of bouquets. I don't know, I'd have to back up my recording, but basically you get a prompt for bouquet, you make it, and you have like a timer that runs out, and you can keep replaying the minigame until you reach your daily limit, at which point you have to wait basically a full day before you can make more bouquets. Now, something I want to clarify here is that my timer showed it was a 21-hour countdown. A lot of people are saying it's a full day, so 24 hours. I'm not quite sure why that is, especially since I didn't just like start playing like right in the morning or anything like that. It's like the middle of the afternoon. So I'm not quite sure how that works, or whether or not they lowered the amount of time you have to wait. I don't know. But regardless, you can play about 4 rounds a day, and then after that you have to wait until the next day till you can play more of the mini game. And on average per round, I earned about 50 to 55 candies, and then total I earned 210 candies today, which it seems like that's pretty much the average amount that every player has been earning for the most part. I would be curious if this is easier on mobile, depending on how obviously it's set up, but I just found like trying to like see my mouse while the screen again was shaking and my eyes are like struggling was very challenging to try and like click things right after and like keep up with the timer. But regardless, I made about 210 candies, which was enough to buy the shoes, which I didn't buy them because I was just gonna wait. But there's a lot of feedback, specifically in the Dress to Impress Discord server. And because these first 2 comments I think were worded pretty respectfully, I am gonna keep the usernames in it. But this person, ghostlight_35, says, "Dear Dress to Impress, I want to tell you that can you add more way to get more candy? We need to buy items in shop, or you can lower the price or buff candies that all players can get more and buy items they want. Also, I think the 24 hours is not worth the cooldown, the minigame, it needs to decrease to like lower, and you need to do more ways to helping players can buy set or items by seasonal easier. I hope you can hear us." Which I obviously understand its perspective, and I'm going to get into my belief on the reasoning why they've made it like this and why, in my opinion, they probably won't change it, but we'll get to that in a second here. Now, this person by the name of Darian Mike, I think it's how I say that, writes, "This update is almost perfect. Everything was well done. Both sides are fed equally. In my opinion, the clothes have no flaws, but the gameplay choices do." Which, first of all, I love it when people voice their feedback in like a respectful way, but like start by like saying things they like, because it's just nicer. It's a nicer way to like word your feedback, like doing a little compliment sandwich. I find is like the best way to like approach stuff, especially when you want your feedback to be heard. And so I think this is a very good example of how you should be formatting your complaints or criticism for a game respectfully. So guys, take notes. Some of y'all in different communities gotta take notes from this person. But they go on to say, "Waiting 24 hours for 200 candies is too much for the little amount of rewarding. Sure, if it gave around 500 candies, I'd understand, but 200 is only enough to purchase the Reverie shoes." Then they go on to say, "The Valentine's quests only give enough hearts for like 3 to 4 items or less. 1,200 total hearts for 9 items is extremely underwhelming, and if the shop prices were lowered, this amount would be reasonable." So it sounds like there's quests that you can do. I'm gonna be honest, I don't do quests in Dress to Impress. Not really my thing. I hate doing quests. But basically, it sounds like from this person's perspective, you earn 1,200 candies per quest, which isn't a lot compared to how much the items cost. So definitely that would be frustrating as a player if you were, really dedicated to playing Dress to Impress. Now, their third point is, "The pricing is extremely exaggerated for what we're getting. My friend spent Robux getting almost all the items and almost none of them have toggles except for the Rococo Reverie dress, which is 1.1k. So that's definitely a good thing to note, especially for people who are playing Dress to Impress and maybe want to buy all the items, to note that there aren't a ton of toggles for the items, and maybe that would kind of sway your decision if you do have limited candies on which items you want to spend your candies on and which items are worth it for you. Now finally, they finished by saying this update is extremely fun to play. They could change how the game is played. The items, the new material variants, and the hair and makeup are amazing, and you guys outdid yourselves. So again, compliment sandwich, very, very polite. Now the final comment we're going to read is one that I blurred the username because I thought this might not be perceived super well, but they say, all new patterns being locked behind a paywall is unfair. Edit, didn't realize some weren't locked, my bad. Which I think for the most part, when people say this, they mean that majority of them are. I do think the differentiation between like majority versus all is important here, but I do also understand that a lot of players feel like all of the good ones, in their opinion, are locked behind a paywall, so maybe that's where that's coming from. They go on to say heart items are too expensive when hearts are hard to get. The third point they make is mask rig was too early, don't push out something before refining it. Which I haven't seen a ton about the mask rig, but the mask rig has been something people have been pushing for so long, like a very, very long time, and I feel like to a degree, Dress to Impress just can't win. They release something, it's not good enough. They don't release something, they're lazy, you know, like, it's a very tricky balance, and I, you know, honestly, this person's entitled to their opinion, but I don't really have anything to say about that. And they go on to say, please do math, add 30% margin or so for players that can't play every day. Most of your players, hire a proper game theory mathematician that can calculate these for you. The hearts math doesn't add up. Which, I didn't get to second here. This person's claiming the hearts math doesn't add up, and I'm not going to sit here and do all this math, but there's a reason for that, and I'm going to explain it in a second, based on my opinion. And they go on to say the feedback on Materials Plus is high, but as someone who bought it, please, if you're going to change its obtainability, discuss our compensation with us. They also say, I understand that there was a huge issue of currency inflation. That means needing to make money drains in expensive items, but that also locks out non-inflated players. So you don't know what this means. It basically means that players, I guess, had an abundance of currency, which then decreases the value of currency. And so to fix that, to kind of re-equalize the economy, they basically make items that are very expensive. So players spend all their currency, and so the currency kind of goes back to a generic, you know, lower consistency among every player. Now, their complaint is that with these money drains, so like expensive items, it's unobtainable for new players or people who don't have a ton of currency, which I understand what they're saying here, but also, unless you want there to always be a disproportionate inequality in the amount of currency players have, you have to make money drains in order to equalize the economy again, especially if you do plan on making more economic updates in the future. So I feel like this was a necessary move, especially for Dress to Impress, to maintain equality in their community, but I understand some players won't be happy with it, but at the end of the day, I feel like the long-term longevity of the game is more important than like a short-term, you know, you can't get an item, it's like, whatever. There'll be more items. I know some people it's really serious to them, and I can respect that, but at the same time, it's not the end of the world. I feel like the pros outweigh the cons, in my opinion. Now, they go on to say the Queen of Hearts set sleeves are badly rendered and need to be revised. A little bit harsh here. We could have worded that a little bit nicer. Where's the second animated hair sob? Otherwise, I like the update. I own every single Game Pass, a private server, pay for lots of stuff in game, but even I feel locked out this time as a working adult. Which I've seen a lot of like people saying like, oh, the items, like, they just aren't obtainable, like, you have to buy candies in order to get all the items, like, you will never be able to earn enough candies, blah, 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 and you're allowed to have your opinion, obviously, and I'm not referring to this person, but I do have to say, based on the math that I did for my last video, which is all theoretical math, I would recommend you guys watch it if you're, like, really confused on what I'm saying here, but based on theoretical math, right, to purchase, before they added the clothing or, you know, patterns plus whatever Game Pass, before that one was added, to purchase every single Game Pass, it was $48 USD. And after all the math, Dress to Impress keeps $8, roughly, out of all of that profit. So the profit margin is very slim after Roblox takes a cut, transfer fees, DevX ratios, it's a lot. And I think a lot of people have the perception that this, I guess, is like Dress to Impress just super rich and they never run out of money, which I'm not saying they're running out of money. But at the same time, a game needs to generate revenue in order to keep giving you high quality updates and to like, not to understate the amount of effort that went into this, but this is a massive, massive update. And so obviously they have to make back the money they invested into the update by having paywalled features, which I know a lot of players take issue with, and I understand that because it seems unfair. But at the end of the day, if you want a high quality game, you want these big updates, you want these plus size bodies, you want all these extra features that a lot of games have trouble producing, there has to be some give and take, and there has to be some, you know, financial stability attached to the game for them to be able to justify investing thousands of dollars into making new rigs, making new items, doing collabs, making new outfits, stuff like that. And I've read some Reddit threads from other developers, and it sounds like, you know, just making items and Dress to Impress, like to make those kind of 3D models, it costs hundreds of dollars to hire someone to do that. So it's not an inexpensive thing. And especially with them adding new clothing items and stuff like that, like, it's a lot of money to invest in a game. And I think it's important for players to recognize that. And although it does maybe seem unfair from your perspective that you can't afford everything, I do think the difficulty in obtaining the items, in my opinion, is purposeful so that it will incentivize players to purchase, candies for Robux so the game can make more money. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think a lot of people think, oh, you're a money grab, that's not fair. And I can understand that perspective, but at the same time, a game has to make money. And if there isn't any, options or feasibility for a game to generate revenue, you will not continue to get high quality updates because the game will not be making enough money to support themselves and to pay developers. So at the end of the day, I understand it is a touchy subject and players want games to always be free, and I don't necessarily want to get into like the ethicality of making things paywalled or making things incredibly difficult to obtain without paying money, because I do think it's a little bit unfair. But at the same time, I try to be empathetic to the fact that the game needs to make money. And based on the math we did last video, there isn't always like a ton of money to be, generated from selling generic game passes and stuff like that. And so I do feel like in the future we may see more and more of these kind of almost like pay to win features type thing, which doesn't really make you win, but you know what I mean? Like just like game changing features that are locked behind a paywall. As the game continues to progress, just so the game can continue to generate revenue and income to support their development team. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It's not a great thing either. But I think if you want the high quality updates, you want consistent communication, you want collabs, you want exciting events, there has to be a give and take, and unfortunately part of that give and take is having paywalled features. So anyways, with all that said and that long tangent out of the way, let me know your guys' thoughts on this in the comment section below. What do you think about this update? Do you like it? Are you purchasing the new Game Pass? What are your thoughts? And altogether, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I understand players' frustration, and so I try to be empathetic to both sides, but also understanding that a game needs to make money. And unfortunately, if you guys want really good quality features, there has to be a give and take, especially when it comes to items costing currency or having to spend Robux on the game. So with that in mind, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye!